Welcome, everyone, to our Ultimate Coach Live book reading today on November 12th. And I would love to pass it over to my fellow co host, Miss Cassie Footman. Cassie, take it away, sweetheart.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever you are joining us. Today, we are reading chapter 17, The Birth of Coaching. And I'm absolutely delighted that we have Farah Ismail with us today. And we are honored to have Farah come and join us today because today is the celebration of Diwali, the celebration of sound and light. And so Farah is joining us just before she goes and continues the celebrations that she's joining with her family and friends this evening. So Farah, welcome, and thank you so much for saying yes. Yeah, thank you. And it really is such a treat to have you come and join us and read from the Book of Being today, entitled The Ultimate Coach. So this event is a co-created space for a deeper experience of the book and to further explore being in community. And as we begin today, I would love to invite each of you to share in the chat your greatest lesson being a coach or being coached has taught you. So I'd love to see what you have to share. So please write in the chat. Lovely. Olga there with being taught to love yourself. Amazing. Patience. Yes, that's been a wonderful lesson for me too, Amy. The greatest lesson for Elizabeth is self-love. Yeah, beautiful. And Dave, that my thoughts are not necessarily true. Indeed, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there was, I was speaking to Judy on Friday on a live that we did in the group, and she shared that Steve had shared with her to stop thinking. Simply stop thinking. So yes, indeed, thoughts are not necessarily true. And Martha, my clients shine back to me who I am. Yeah, indeed. We see a beautiful mirror. We experience a beautiful mirror. Steve is sharing about self-forgiveness and that there's always hope. There's always hope. Thank you, Chris. Indeed. And that's a beautiful, beautiful thing to remember, particularly with all sorts of things happening in the world right now. There is always hope. And we get to create new stories. Yeah. Thank you, Tanya. And to feel all our feelings. Thank you, Dina. That has certainly been a huge lesson for myself. And there's lots here with love as well, and freedom. And Teresa, doubt your doubts. That's a wonderful one. Thank you so much. That is a beautiful gift. I'm falling in love with the possibilities. There's a miracle there with possibilities. And so much gold when we listen versus talking. And so today, through the book reading, we invite you to listen as Farah reads chapter 17, The Birth of Coaching. And just a little reminder that while acknowledgements of one another are really powerful, that we request today that when you share, that you share about you. And if you feel called to acknowledge someone, we ask that you reach out privately or perhaps in the Ultimate Coach Facebook group, and you use it as an opportunity to deepen your connections there. So we request that when you read, that you read about you. When you listen about you. And when it comes time to share, you share about you. And as is so beautifully stated by Byron Katie, all we experience about anyone else is the idea that we have of them. So please be aware as you're sharing that you are invited to share about you. And if you were to start to share from an idea of someone not you, then we may lovingly guide you back to sharing about you. And with that, I'm going to pass over to Tanya. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cassie. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And I just really want to honor everyone who is present here for everything you did to arrive here today, to be here, to be present, and as a possibility to grow you as you listen and as you read this amazing chapter, chapter 17, with our beautiful Farah, who will be reading us today. Again, thank you, Farah, for saying yes to today. And at this time, I would love to see who is new today. If we have any newcomers and that this is your first time to a book reading, if you would like to turn your camera on and say hello, we would like to acknowledge you as your first time being here. And if not, we understand. That's okay. Don't mean to put you on the spot, but we do acknowledge you for being here. We honor your presence. And at this time, I would love to see who has their book with them because I am looking for a reader for the back of the book and for the first two pages, and Before You Begin by Steve Hardison. So I am feeling, yes, Vanessa. Vanessa, would you like to read the back of the book or would you like to read Before You Begin today?
The back of the book, it's okay.
The back of the book. Okay, so just hold on tight and we'll have you do that in just a moment. And I'd love to get another volunteer. Do we have someone that would like to read the first two pages by Steve Hardison? Elizabeth. Yes, I see your hand, sweetheart. Okay, beautiful. So the way that we'll do it, the flow of the call will be Vanessa, you will read the back of the book, and then Vanessa and Elizabeth, as soon as Vanessa is done, you'll go straight into reading the first two pages. And as soon as you're done, Farah, you'll go ahead and continue on to your reading. So thank you, ladies, for volunteering and saying yes. And at this time, we'll go ahead and get started. Oh, wait, one more thought. As you're listening to the questions that are in the back of the book, and you're listening to the questions and before you begin, if one particular question calls to you, it's really calling to you, and you would like to share that question in the chat as your focus or as your intention for this call, we would love to share with you that presence that you'll be bringing with that question. So at this time, I honor all of you for being here and we will get started. So Vanessa, it's all yours, sweetheart.
Okay, thank you. Dear potential reader, as you may have noticed, there are no testimonials on the back cover of this book, imploring you to read it. I be told that the only testimonial, and I'm interested in, is the one you will have from reading and experiencing this book. Please do not read this book about me. Read this book about you. Read it about being. As you read, ask yourself, who would I need to be a more loving person? Who would I need to be a more effective parent? Who would I need to be to create a level of confidence that is remarkable? Who would I need to be at peace with who am I? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? I promise you that if you read this book with the intention of expanding your state of being, you will do exactly that. Your experience will be remarkable. Who you are being is everything. Loving you, be blessed, be you. Steve Hardison.
Before you begin, thank you for reading the back cover and the first two pages each time before you read this book. Oh. I never wanted to write a book, and I haven't. I never wanted to have a book written about me, but here it is. This book is a gift from my wife, Amy, who wrote it, and my friend, Alan D. Thompson, who conducted the research and interviews on which it is based. It's not just a gift to me, but to you too. And now you're reading it. So with your permission, I'll give you some suggestions on how to read it. You see, this isn't an ordinary book. It's not simply a biography. It's not a self-help book. It's not a literary classic. It's definitely not a book about how to coach. In fact, it's not a book about doing anything. It's a book about being. And it's a book about you. To access this book, ask yourself these questions as you read. Who am I being as a partner, parent, or friend? Who am I being as a leader? Who am I being as a member of my community? Who would I need to be to have miracles show up in my daily life? Who would I need to be to create value in the work I do? Who would I need to be to generate a life of abundance? Who would I need to be to alter my relationship with fear? Who would I need to be at peace with my past? Who would I need to be to step powerfully into my future? Who would I need to be present as a way of being? Who would I need to be to live the most extraordinary life I can live? Who would I need to be to know that my life makes a difference? Who would I need to be fully in love with myself and my life? Who would I need to be to improve my relationships with the most important people in my life? Who would I need to be to read The Ultimate Coach and have a personal breakthrough in being wonderful me? The best part about this book about you, is that it's endless. The story goes on, and it's written by your being. Loving you, be blessed, be you. Steve Hardison.
The birth of coaching. As of 2020, there are an estimated 71,000 life coaches worldwide. There are coaching schools, coaching certifications, and credentialing organizations. One website lists 21 types of life coaches. There are business coaches, career coaches, and relationship coaches. And if the relationship coaching doesn't work, there is divorce coaching. But none of this was happening in 1991 when Steve was deciding what to do with his life. Steve was sitting on the deck staring out at the mountains. He had been doing this a lot over the past few months. If only he could unplug forever. In the house were his 4 children and his wife. He had a modest severance package from Rodel, but he could not afford the luxury of an endless breakdown. He had to do something. They could sell the house, but that would be a temporary solution. At some point, Steve would have to do something to provide. When Steve was at Weber State, he was constantly being recruited for multi-level marketing. He knew he would have done well at it. He loved sales. He was good with people. But Amy was strongly opposed. He still resented that she had clipped his wings. Maybe now was the time. Amy was worried enough about him to offer no resistance. Steve stepped into multi-level marketing. Soon he stepped out. Steve learned that he was not constituted to nudge, encourage, and prod people who weren't serious or who needed support every step of the way. He was great if people caught the vision and could fly. He could provide lift and momentum. He could keep eagles focused on the sun. People who weren't sure if they could get off the ground drove him crazy. The foray into multi-level marketing had consumed some of their precious savings, but Steve now knew without a doubt that it wasn't for him. Steve was at the car wash. As usual, he was talking with people. He met Keith, who was struggling with his business. By the end of the conversation, Keith was Steve's first client. He came to Steve's house and they sat at the dining table. Steve helped him solve his problems. Steve saw a glimmer of possibility. It was enough to break the white-knuckle grip of despair. It was enough to resurrect his energy. Steve was back in the saddle. Steve's phone rang. It was Bill. I'm trying to pronounce that. Bill Bro, Steve's former boss at Xerox. Like Steve, Bill had moved on from Xerox. He was currently the sales manager at the University of Phoenix. Hi, Steve. Have you heard of a company named Timex? No. Well, they're only about 10 minutes away from you, said Bill. They've done some good work with us, and I really, really like them. I think they could use you. A few days later, Bill brought Dennis Deaton, the co-owner and CEO of Timex, a corporate training company that specialized in time management, to Steve's house. Bill made the introductions and took his leave. Steve asked Dennis questions about his company and learned that Dennis had a partner. Steve asked if his partner knew about this meeting. Within minutes of Dennis saying no, Steve and Dennis were driving to Timex. In 10 minutes, they picked up Reese Borden. In 10 more minutes, Steve said, if you want a partnership, you're going to have to trust each other and talk to each other. Steve then gave them an irresistible offer. Steve would work with them for 6 weeks without being paid. At the end of 6 weeks, they could decide whether or not to hire him. Steve did for Timex what he has never done since. He worked in-house 3 days a week. Steve also did for Timex what he has done before and after. He worked miracles. For instance, one day Steve asked Reese how much business they did with Motorola. Steve replied, they are our biggest customer. How do they come to us? Asked Steve. Actually, said Reese, I don't know. I think we should find out, said Steve. Reese explained that as the president of Timex, he was a little uncomfortable going into Motorola's human resource department and asking those kind of questions. Steve assured Reese that all he had to do was watch. At Motorola, Steve introduced himself. Hi, I'm Steve Hardison, and this is Reese Borden from Timex. I'm his coach. Could you help us understand something? We have 120 seats available in the courses we put up for Motorola, but only 30 people come. When we talk to your employees after a course, they say they love the course and they had to wait for 2 months to get in because it was sold out. But we are definitely not at capacity. Could you walk us through how someone from Motorola gets into these courses? The HR employee explained. The Motorola employee comes to us and tells us what training they want. We look up the company in the computer and see how many seats are available. She clicked a few keys on her keyboard. We have 30 seats available for Time Max. When those are filled, we don't put anyone else in. Steve asks, who puts the 30 in the computer? I do. Can we change this to 125, says Steve. Click. Done. Motorola enrolled employees in 50 courses each year. Each seat costs $225. Selling 100 more seats for each of the 50 created a potential increase of 1,125,000 to Time Max annual revenue from Motorola alone from one conversation. Not a bad miracle for starters. Steve worked with Time Max for 5 years. He coached several of the executives and key employees. He trained the executives and the sales team on the practical side of business and on their thinking. Reese Borden says, Steve would listen for 5 minutes as I described a problem, and then spend the next hour helping me to see the thinking that caused the problem in the first place. More importantly, he helped me see the thinking and the actions that would solve it. Steve ruffled feathers when he first arrived at Time Max. He was direct. He called people on their stuff. He cut out the dead wood. He changed the way things were done. He also solved huge problems. One day, Dennis and Reese came to Steve and said they wanted to handle their debt. Steve asked whom they owed money to. Reese mentioned a binder manufacturer. Such vendors usually demanded payment in 30 days, but Reese had negotiated 180 days. Steve said, "You're taking advantage of him. Put him on the top of the list." Who else? They listed every outstanding account. Before they finished, Steve again asked if there was anyone else that needed to be on their list. Well, said Reese, there's one more debt. We owe $80,000 to an elderly woman. When is the money due? Asked Steve. There is no date. Get her on the phone. As Steve chatted with this sweet grandma, he asked her when she planned on being paid. Oh, whenever they can, she said. I just love those boys. How about July 1st? Responded Steve. Oh, that's fine, but there's no hurry. It doesn't matter. It matters to us, said Steve. We're trying to clean up our ship. They gave their word for July 1st. When Reese asked how they were going to pay all these vendors, Steve said, we're going to sell our way out of debt. To do so, they needed a sales force. Steve helped them build one. It wasn't long before Time Max was operating in the black. Reese relates, my personal income doubled in 1994, the first year we hired Steve as a coach. It doubled again each year for the next 2 years. Our business profits soared. But his impact wasn't just financial. Being coached by Steve fundamentally changed who I was and how I thought and acted. So how did Steve, who was sitting on his deck staring off at the mountains, leapfrog into being a successful business coach? The mountain-staring Steve was floundering in depression. He had reached the end of his winning formula. The break in belonging exercise had jarred his soul. Issues from his childhood were clamoring for resolution. All of these collided at one time. It was almost too much. Almost, but not quite. His work with Lloyd brought Steve to his nadir and to his rebirth. Steve shook off his depression. He started resolving his past. He created a new way to win. He dropped off his baggage. He embraced without apology the man he was at his core. Outrageous, bold, committed, loving, unleashed, unorthodox, and brashly confident. He brushed off the gifts and experiences that had given him power throughout his life. He still had them. They had been in the attic of his soul, waiting. With newfound clarity, Steve 2.0 was ready to roll. I just want to take a minute for you to just breathe in that chapter. And in a few moments, I'm going to share the leadership principles that Reese Borden learned from Steve. And as you listen to these, I'd like to invite you to see which of these principles are your favorite, and which of these principles do you find most challenging to apply in your life or your business or your career. Here are some of the leadership principles I learned from Steve. Life is a creation. We create it with our speaking. Leaders use their speaking as a way to create hope and possibility. Every conversation is an opportunity to create a better outcome than would have occurred had you not been involved. Effective leaders bump up the conversation to a higher level. Leaders bring positive things into existence through their speaking. There are seldom quick, easy answers. Most solutions come through managing conversations. Leaders complete one conversation before moving to another one. They don't pile conversations one on top of the other. Acknowledgements are a powerful form of creation. People will become what you acknowledge them to be. When you transfer responsibilities, train the employee with the new responsibility to a new, higher level. No assignment is complete until it is reported as complete. Returning and reporting is a powerful leadership principle. It gives a leader an opportunity to acknowledge the completion. When delegating, establish an agreed upon time for the assignment to be completed. Tuesday at 5 p.m. means the same thing to everybody. That discipline produces results that would not likely have occurred without a specific deadline. No organization will rise above the level of its leader. My company is a reflection of me. Making commitments creates opportunities to practice being your word. When you tell someone you will not meet them, you will meet them at a certain time. It is an opportunity to practice keeping a commitment and being your word. Practicing this principle makes you a more effective, disciplined individual and leader. And the last one, we think we see life as it is. This is not true. We see life as we are. When we open our mouths to speak, we think we are describing the world as it is. This is not true. What we are really doing is describing ourselves. We are describing how the world looks to us.
Thank you, Farah. So incredibly beautiful. Wow, let's all take a nice deep breath in. Ooh, those principles. Thank you for asking us to all for all of us to pause for a moment and really receive that last part as well beyond the chapter. And I'd love to come back to Vanessa. Vanessa, I'd love to invite you if there's something present that you'd like to share. Please feel welcome to share.
Yes, thank you, Farah, for the reading. So what I was thinking about is that how we can change everything when we just do the right question. When our conversations take people to specific things. And when we take compromise of what we are saying. So that is what I take from all the reading. And then when Farah asked us how, which of the principles is my favorite, is life is a creation. We create it with our speaking. And the most challenging for me is leaders complete one conversation before moving to another one. I used to think a lot of things at the same time. And when I'm speaking or having a conversation, like I want to finish right away one and start another. And then while I was thinking about what I just said, then I asked myself, what is that only thing I have to change to make that compromise with me that can help me to be focused on one conversation, and I can help that way the person which I'm sharing with. That is. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Vanessa. What a beautiful share. Thank you. And what a beautiful reading as well. Thank you. At this time, I'd love to ask Elizabeth. Elizabeth, would you like to share with us what's present for you?
Yes, thank you. I have to giggle because what Vanessa said was that was mine. It's speaking and from creating, and I was going over pretty much the past month for me and how I was waking up in the morning before, and then to how I'm waking up and speaking to myself during the day now is really different. I mean, I went through an event a month ago, and it, in so many ways, I'm back in myself, in my love, in my power, in my presence, and it's really feels like a transformation again, like it's just another layer, another level, another moment of expansion, and it's amazing. And all of this from well, first from my willingness, but then to have this book come into my life, just like the synchronistic events that are talked about with Steve and his clients, all this synchronicity happening in my life. And I'm speaking my document, my word, my blessings all day long. And it's so powerful, and it's so beautiful, and it's so easy to then acknowledge, as that was one of those things, acknowledge who other people are, to see the truth in them, to relate to that truth. And then that very last, the very last comments were for me so powerful. We think we see life as it is. We see life as we are. So when we are that, when we are being that, we can't help but see that love and that joy and that peace and that power in the other. It was very powerful, and what a beautiful reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my goodness. Both of your shares have been so powerful, and really even what's present for me from what you just shared when you said you had an event occur earlier this month. Whenever we have events that do shake us in our lives or feel like we've been shaken, I believe that this chapter for me even kind of opened up the possibility that it's okay, because it shows, we just went past the demolition chapter, and then it expresses how he had all of this to rebirth his new self that was already there, in a sense that it was already within him, but he had to grow through that experience in order to get him to that next level. And the power of what our document and how our document can recreate us, right? And the power of our language and how we're speaking, because if we're stuck in that demolition phase and we're just recycling what we're not, and what, all of the less thans, how that creates us also in that moment. But when we can anchor to who we know we are, and who we intend to be through our language, and we can't give away what we don't have. And so the power of acknowledging others, that they will, that is exactly who, not exactly maybe, but that is who they can also step into being as well when they are acknowledged as well. So thank you so much. That just really awakened all of that in me, and I felt called to share. So thank you for your beautiful share and your reading as well. I appreciate you.
Hmm.
Miss Farah, would you like to share with us, sweetheart? Thank you for your beautiful reading.
You. Wow, I'm just listening to Vanessa and Elizabeth, and I'm so touched by the impact this chapter has. And I read this, I think this is my third time I'm reading this chapter. And there's so much that opened up for me as I was reading it today. And today, what stood out for me was, so when I actually said yes to this chapter, Birth of Coaching, I was really excited because I was thinking about what I'm creating in my coaching and how I'm rebirthing something. And then when I read it, I think for me, what stood out was the times when I was giving birth to new things in my life and getting rid of so much. And one of the things that has stood out for me was the time when I was reinventing everything and starting from scratch was in 2006. It was like rebirth for me, because that's when I reached a point when I had no idea what I could do with my life. I was in a really toxic relationship, and I had been stuck there for 13 years. 13 years of going through every possible emotion and thinking I don't have the power to get out of it, and that I needed to try doing the same old stuff. I don't think I was looking at anything beyond that little boundary I was operating from. And I think it was this one morning when I woke up and I had this glimmer of possibility that I'm not going to take this anymore. And as I read that in the chapter, when Steve also reached that point, there's something that that shifts for you. And for me, it was that moment of awareness of knowing that I could tap into choosing courage over comfort. I just didn't want to stay in a place where everything had become so stale and I couldn't see anything beyond. So I believe that was one place when I really thought about getting rid of everything, getting rid of the baggage, taking off all the armors that I had put on and protecting myself. All the feelings that I had, I was feeling like a victim there. Then I was taking them off one at a time. It took me a long time to actually walk through that and rebirth myself. And I believe that it's the most powerful space to be when you can really notice what's happening inside of you. So for me, that was really the birth of bringing Farab 2.0. That was the moment. And of course, the whole journey has been so interesting because once I was able to get out of this prison of my own thinking that I had to be there or I need to do to make things work in spite of everything, I chose to open new doors in my life. And I think that's the glimmer of possibility for me is sometimes you don't see the doors and sometimes there's a little light, you know, and if you don't allow that light to come in, what happens is you don't see beyond what you can see. And so for me, it was opening those little doors and seeing the cracks in my life and then choosing to walk through it and create from there. And I think the journey has been really, really interesting for me. Like when I look at what Steve has been through, I think it was going back to who I am, you know, something I had lost, you know, this childlike, creative, someone who grew up believing that anything is possible. Our parents brought us up like that. So what came in my way to really get lost in this? So it was that process of rebirthing and finding that core of myself back again. Initially, I thought I had to do it alone. And, you know, I was like that victim thinking, I'm alone in this. And I'm so happy I saw another light. And that's when I was able to realize that you can't do this thing called life alone. You're not meant to do it alone. And that's when I think I was able to reach out for, you know, people in my network or people who showed me the door to like Time Max. And I've had instances like that when I've gone there and it was my first ever time to step into a training and I had no experience. I just had experience of life and a lot of exposure. And those are the turning points, I believe. They give birth to something, but because you know that, you can create that. It's what you create is what's important. And so when I look at these leadership principles, gosh, what I'm really stepping into that life is such a beautiful creation and everything is created by us in our thoughts. And I didn't know that. Now I know that. And so I'm consciously creating, I'm learning. And the best part of my second birthing, oh my God, you need to know this, was when my whole, you know, I'm living in this world and suddenly I had another light. And that light was meeting Alok Apudurai in a meeting where he was talking his document and I didn't know it was his document. I was touched in the first 5 minutes. He spoke about a book, this one. He named his coach, Steve Hardison, and my ears were pricking. And that was another birthing for me. And I tapped into who I am. Intuitively, this is what it was. And that's the start of a new process for me of creation. That's when I met Steve Hardison, met all of you from the Ultimate Coach family, and then came the Ultimate Mumbai experience. And I'm sitting there and getting so expanded by what's happening. There were things I'd never knew before. Today, I so proudly say I'm in a different orbit. I've come into this orbit of these incredible people. I'm so lucky that I was reborn again. And here I'm introducing Ankush Jain on the stage. he was the master of acknowledgements. And I'm sitting there and saying, I have to do that. I must learn that. I must strengthen that. That's powerful. Before I know it, I make a big decision in my life. I decide to actually rebirth my coaching practice. So where I am right now is, so I have a 23-year-old business of facilitation and coaching. Coaching was the newer part of my business. And once I met Ankush and everybody else, I just knew that this is what I want to do. I want to create a really prosperous coaching business that is ethical and sustainable. And that's another time I opened the door and I said yes. So I'm part of that, the AJC school, and I'm creating some miracles there. And it comes from creation. It's what I'm creating from a space of playfulness, service, and just a lot of fun. So I want to say that when I look at these principles, there's so much to learn from me. As I said, everything I want to strengthen. But one thing I know is that our words betray us. Our words is where we create from. So I've become really conscious of what I create every single day. And I love the ripples that are happening with this, with my clients, with my loved ones. So it's powerful being reborn again and again and again. And I think that's the way to disrupt everything that we do. So I want to say that this has been so precious for me to read this chapter because there's a lot of it that is connecting with me. Was the biggest work that I did was taking my backpack with all the baggage that I had, and over time dropping the bag and just removing all the things that I didn't need. And I'm just growing from that space. It's a beautiful journey. And I'm so happy I'm with you on this journey. So just a bit about what I feel about this chapter. Thanks. I'm complete.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you for your very powerful share and sharing you and unapologetically. You're just so, I see you rising. I see you so brave. I see you so fun. I see you really create with intention. Through every word that you use, the power in your creations is just absolutely beautiful. And I really also want to thank you and honor you for being a part of Team TUC for the second season. Thank you so much for all that you contribute to each and every one of us through your presence. Thank you. Martha, would you like to share, honey?
Thank you, Tanya. Wow. I've read this chapter several times because the chapter really resonated for me when I first read the book and continues to do so. But today, I'm in such gratitude because it re-emphasizes the principle of people will become what you acknowledge them to be. And I have never experienced such power in that particular principle as I have had in being in the being part of the Tuck Facebook group, and now in this group myself. It started with a particular gentleman for whom I've already acknowledged. At the beginning of my being involved in the Facebook group. And part of that was the title that was given to me as author. And when it was first given to me as author, I thought, are you crazy? Me, an author? We had had many conversations about all the journaling that I do and how much I love to write. And the creation of me as an author became a believable aspect of myself. But it took that deep acknowledgement from this individual who I love and I respect and appreciate. And not just that person, but also the various individuals who, throughout the last couple of years, have acknowledged me in one way or another. And what I'm finding, that powerful acknowledgement has made such a difference in my life. And now it's how do I apply that particular principle with others in my life? And watching them feel that genuine, authentic acknowledgement of them as they're moving along and whatever it is that they're doing. So for me, I think this has been the most powerful and most influential principle of the ones that were written in the book, acknowledging the other, not just saying it, but really believing it and embracing it. And so grateful for Tuck, so grateful for this book, and so grateful for the first person that acknowledged me as an author, and so appreciate him so much. Thank you. I'm complete.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you for your beautiful share, and congratulations on publishing your new book. You are an author. Congratulations. Yes, so much so much congratulations to you. And again, I also want to acknowledge your presence and your support that you have created in the Tuck group, in the Facebook group, throughout the community, and as well as on the Team Tuck. You've been part of it for 2 years, and your presence is very much appreciated. So thank you. Anne Marie, hi. Good morning.
I don't even know where to begin after all these powerful shares, because I resonated so deeply with so many of them. And Team Talk has changed my life, and the acknowledgments that I have gotten over the last 2 years, they were too big for me to accept. I had never heard acknowledgments like this in my life. I was raised with deconstructive criticism, not constructive criticism. And through these acknowledgments, I was powerfully nudged back into my lane. And somebody from the group came to me and said, I want to coach you because I see you. I see your power. And that was really huge for somebody to acknowledge that I was so powerful. And then he said, think of all the impossible things that you have already accomplished. And this chapter reminded me of that, because I put a cash offer on a resort in a national forest off grid with a liquor license and a hand-built resort that had a store, a bar, a cafe, and the only shower in the wilderness. I had no telephone. I generated my electricity. Our water came from a well, and I served over 1,000 people a day while homeschooling 2 of my children and running staff and leaving that mountain 1 day a week for 16 hours to shop for everybody who came to that mountain. But what I did with it is I bought it from the original owners who were in their 70s and 90s, and I changed their menu. The items that they had could be made into better food. The food that they had could be improved. But there were hundreds of thousands of people who would come into that forest. There were neighborhoods, little outlets of cabins where they rented the land from the forestry department, and none of these people knew each other. And the mountain people called me a flatlander because I came from the flatland. I wasn't a mountain person. And they really looked down on us, the educated, the smart, the witty. If you're not swilling beer and smoking Marlboros, rustling cattle, you just didn't belong. But when I got there, I pulled the community together. I pulled 44 people, 44 different cabin owners together. They didn't even know their own neighbors. Every year they had a meeting. They had their after meeting party at my place, having been strangers for over 20 years before I arrived. I lived on a curve, a blind curve, where it was unsafe for cars to pull out with a trailer. You couldn't see them. You couldn't see them. There was an accident waiting to happen. And I got a hold of Department of Transportation, and I had signs put up on a road. We had another place on a road, it was called Dead Man's Curve. And one night we were called to that site after our karaoke night to find that 3 people had driven off the road and a woman was dying. And I believe that we do not come into this world alone, and we do not leave this world alone. And so I sent my workers down the hill to hold her hand as she died. And she was 26 years old, just had been at my bar, wasn't drinking, beautiful singer. And I was holding somebody else's hand, you know, hoping he did not die while I held his hands. That's who I was. That's who I was in the most powerful creation of who I was. You know, bringing the people together. I was 1 hour from the main road, 2 hours from a town, and people would drive one way to see me in the forest to listen to my words of wisdom. There was a funeral in town, and people drove in the middle of the night after attending a funeral to hear why did this girl have to die? Why? And I would just channel this information for them. Well, I forgot who she was. I forgot who she was, and I lost her, and I loved her so much. And this year is my demolition phase, and it's coming to an end. But it's hard because if you demolish a building, there's a lot of rubble, right? So try walking on rubble. So I'm walking on rubble, I'm demolished, but I don't have a good footing yet, right? Because so much other things are familiar that I don't want to be familiar any longer. For instance, yesterday, I had great reason to celebrate. Oh my God, what a day I had with the support of Team Tuck and launching my free live Zoom, my first Zoom. It was free, and actually I got more services offered to me that surpassed any money I could have charged from other Team Tuck members and their heart and their generosity and their gifts. And I thought, wow, this is so powerful. But I wanted to celebrate, and I wanted to get out of the house, and I had nobody to celebrate with. And I have to get used to living alone and like buying the smallest portion of things, which is weird after owning a restaurant and feeding thousands of people. And I didn't know how to celebrate alone. I did last week when I cooked a nice dinner and I had a nice date night by myself at home, but I didn't know how to celebrate myself. And now today, because I didn't do it well, it left me feeling really deflated today. Right. And I'm not looking at the impossible things that I can create in this moment. That's not how I woke up, because it's still early for me. But because of these shares and because of the power, you've nudged me back into my lane. Like I can start my day again. I'm gonna celebrate in stillness today, actually. Because of a podcast Alyssa Ann sent me about a man who died, pronounced dead, in a body bag, in an ambulance, who came back to life. And the story and how he felt everything in the room and everyone's thoughts and everyone's emotions. And he didn't know what he was watching until he physically felt, once he was in the emergency room, he physically felt his arm tug, and he was looking at a body that had just broken the restraint on his arm. And he looked down in his life and he realized he was watching his own death. And that's when I realized, he said it was like looking at life from the ceiling of a movie theater. And sometimes I think that's me. I'm looking at my life from the wrong perspective. I'm looking at my life as if I'm the audience instead of the starring lead actress. And when I die, and if God was giving out Academy Awards, I certainly do want to win the award of leading actress, not supporting actress. but it's the support of this group that gives me the power to lead my life. I'm complete. I have no idea where those words came from, most of them. I thank you deeply for who you are, for seeing who I am, and for keeping me in my lane. I love you so much, one and all. I'm complete.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, for showing up unapologetically. And thank you for sharing so bravely through your demolition. And I appreciate that you woke up. I appreciate that you woke up today and that you are here with us. To me, you are so brave and you are an overcomer. And I'm so proud of you for everything that you are growing through. And I appreciate you with all my heart. Thank you, Anne-Marie, for being you unapologetically. Vanessa, would you like to share?
Yes, thank you, Anne-Marie. So what I was thinking about is the one of the principles I mentioned when I said leaders complete one conversation before moving to another. And then I said, so that makes me think about when I'm sharing with someone, what is that conversation I have to finish first? And then when you continue sharing and listening to Farah and also Anne-Marie and everything we are sharing right now, I start thinking about leading my life and what is that conversation I have to finish. What is that conversation I have to complete to start another conversation in me? Farah said, I chose to open new doors. So each of one, every person is here, every one of us, we all, every day, there's a door that wants to be opened up by us. But then when we are standing in front of that door, we have a conversation. And what is that conversation? I have to stop to finish so I can choose to open that door and live whatever is through the door, whatever I'm going to create when I go through that door. So then I think about these sessions where I can meet you, everybody. And in another days, I've shared that every time I have to talk with you, I'm thinking about I'm not doing right. I'm afraid to speaking in English or reading in English. And also I think that those days that I don't get here, I have a conversation that says to me, oh, it's okay because you have to do another thing. But the conversation, the real conversation I'm having with me is that I'm afraid of talking in English. So today, when I wake up, I read a statement that Gabi Puma put on the Facebook, on the Ultimate Coach Facebook, and she asked who you are being today. And then I answered that I'm being happiness and freedom. So the next question is, if I'm being that, do I'm having conversations with me that makes me being that? And if I'm not having that conversation, what is that conversation I have to finish? And what is that new compromise I have to take with me? So my mind, my heart, and my being start creating new things and believing that I can speak with you in English and share whatever I want to really share with you. So thank you. Thank you for all the sharing.
That was so powerful and beautiful, Vanessa. And your English is beautiful to me. So thank you for overcoming that old conversation and stepping into this new conversation because it's absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Dave Orton, would you like to share, my friend?
I would. Thank you. And wanted to share a couple of things from this chapter that spoke to me. The moments that matter. The moment where Steve was at the car wash and he met Keith. He brought him home, and that was a light turned on in Steve's soul, and in Keith's life, I'm sure, was never the same. But he saw a glimmer of possibility. It was enough to resurrect his energy. Steve was back in the saddle. When I worked with Steve for my 10-hour agreement with him, I was in the midst of a depression and not being productive in that way. And it took me about 6 months after working with Steve to get out of that. And I just love this. I love the power that is brought to bear, you know, coming off of, I was in the midst of my own breakdown when I went and worked with Steve for 10 hours. And that wasn't, you know, it's funny because that wasn't the part that made it into the book about my working with Steve. The beauty of this is that Steve shows the possibility to me of how powerful conversations can be. You know, in one conversation, because Steve was willing to have a courageous conversation, he made this company over $1 million potentially. Now I'm reminded that each of us has the possibility in our conversations, and I in particular, because it's about me, this share. Keep going, thank you. That I have the opportunity to make an enormous difference with people. And I do that, and I love that. And sometimes it takes a couple of conversations, and that's okay. And I am grateful for this conversation today, this book reading. I love these leadership principles. Life is a creation, and we create it with our speaking. I create with my speaking. I used to say things like, I am sick. Now I say things like, I have a cold, or I have symptoms. It's beautiful and interesting to me that such small changes, such small words create such enormous outcomes in my life and the lives of people around me. I love you guys. Thank you for being here. And I'm complete.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you for your share. Thank you. Sincerely. Dinah, would you like to share,
Hi.
honey?
Yeah, thank you. I'm really moved by all the shares today. Been really, really lovely. I'm always struck by how in such few chapters we're all touched and motivated by different parts. Today, when we were reading the back and the front of the book, I put into the chat the line that stood out for me was, who would I need to be to create miracles in my daily life? And it's nearly a year. Hold on. It's nearly a year since I was given this book. And I don't think that line has ever stood out to me before because I haven't felt worthy of it. Like it wasn't a possibility. And it struck me today that it's a possibility. So I always underline the parts of the book that stand out to me. And I underlined where it says that Steve stepped into multi-level marketing and he learned he was not constituted to nudge, encourage, and prod people who weren't serious who needed support every step of the way. The bit that I underlined, I just thought was so lovely. It was, he was great if people caught the vision and could fly. He could provide lift and momentum. He could keep eagles focused on the sun. And it struck me that that's what I want to be, that eagle focused on the sun and not someone who needs support every step of the way. That really hit me today. And then the other bit that I underlined was where he talks about issues from his childhood that were clamoring for resolution and that they all collided at one time. And it was all almost too much, but not quite. And that he started resolving his past. He created a new way to win. He dropped off his baggage. I love that. He embraced without apology the man he was at his core. And he describes it. And so when you read that, I thought, I'm going to write down now what that is for me. Well, initially I thought I'll do that later, and I thought you won't do it later, so do it now. And so I wrote down kind, loving, passionate, bold, creative, adventurous, colorful, gentle, fun, loving, capable. And the other bit that I loved was that he said they had been in the attic of his soul waiting. How beautiful is that line? And I thought, these are in the attic of my soul. And then I started, life is a creation. We create it with our speaking. So yeah, I felt really moved by that today, and everybody sharing, and you read and shared so beautifully that it really touched something inside me. And I'm really struck at the moment that when I just step in and don't think, oh, I should do that, or I should contact that person, or that would be healing, that in the last few weeks I've just done it. I haven't stood in the space of thinking about doing it. I've just done it. And how people have stepped forward to me when I've done that. First of all, when I commented on someone from this group, they're sharing on YouTube, and they immediately contacted me and offered a conversation. Whew, that was huge. That opened up a whole day of, well, more than a day of opening into something. And then I contacted someone who I have been recommending to others for well over a year. And I suddenly thought, maybe it's me that needs to contact this lady. And by coincidence, she posted or sent an email yesterday. It was all about her experience of grief. It was the most beautiful message. And I contacted her straight away. And she emailed me back. And I'm just so struck how whenever I step in at the moment with this group and with others, that people step in. So yeah, life is a creation. Here's to creating miracles. I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Dinah. And thank you for restating some of those parts in this chapter. Really, really powerful. Amy's writing is very powerful. And what really, really stuck out to me in this moment was just even thinking, because I just arrived back home traveling through airports and through Washington. And the whole time I had like this giant backpack on my back as I'm trucking through and as I was traveling through. And I'm thinking, how much more difficult would it be to climb to the attic of my soul with that backpack of luggage on my back? Quite more difficult rather than just laying it down, how much easier I could make that climb, even if it's just one step at a time. So that was really, really powerful and what was present for me through your shares. Thank you. Thank you. And I loved also how you said people in this group step in for support, which is so true and what I've experienced as well. So thank you. Ms. Olga, would you like to share?
Thank you. Tanya, I always love the way you say my name. You are creating a soft L, Olga. I like that. I like that. I want to share about something that was touched on that has made a huge difference for me as a child. And that is the power of acknowledgement. I grew up in a communist country and my parents didn't have a chance to get any coaching. There was something that was unknown there. And when I look back, I just kind of, see what a beautiful, powerful coach my mom was to me. Because one of the things that I always have or had seen as a child was that my mom, she really knew about the power of acknowledgement. And she used it a lot. I don't have awareness around my two brothers about it, but I really just kind of have awareness around it, how she would be acknowledging me. And I look at that back and I remember before even just knowing about the Ultimate Coach book and about the power of acknowledgement, I know that when somebody asked me in the past, what was the most powerful things that you have gotten from your parents and from your parents' parenting, I always have said, I love the way my mother was able to, I use the word compliment me on any simple, small thing I would have done. And it was something that was to build me on, something positive, and today I know that that's, I would change that to a better English word, and that is the power and the art of acknowledgement. Because as it says, just, on the page 123, acknowledgements are a powerful form of creation. People will become what you acknowledge them to be. And I'm just so grateful for my mother that she was just tuned and prompt to do that. And so what happened, of course, is that I have felt that that was one of the most incredible and powerful tools I can use with my two boys. And I did, and I still have been doing it as adults, because I see that there is just kind of a beauty when you are acknowledged for something that might be even a potential, a nucleus of something who just you might not even be able to see. I know how powerful that it is in the group where we are together. It's just the power, just, hearing Tanya using her capability of the language to acknowledge every single one of us who spoke just today, only. It's just really incredible to me that the power is really in the language and how we use the language. And so I'm really so grateful, because there is a huge power, in the acknowledgement that I have experienced as a human being, and how it really built me up in completely a place that was not based on a power of acknowledgement, rather than on the power of control every single, individual in the society. And I think that it had really helped me to become who I am today, to be curious, even as a kid, just knowing that there is more to life than I just was offered at school or in the books that I had to read, as a student in elementary school or middle school or high school. So I really am so grateful, for the power of acknowledgement. Thank you. I'm complete.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you so much. The power of acknowledgement. In this moment, what's present for me is, what are we acknowledging? And so it's just as easy to acknowledge someone that's not stepping into something in like a great fashion. And so we acknowledge what they're not doing, or we acknowledge how they're not showing up. And so if the power of acknowledgement creates the person to stepping into who they can be, we can just as easy create someone to be something less than what they actually can be through that acknowledgement. And so I just really honor the share that you created and the presence that you are creating in your own children's life through experiencing the powerful acknowledgement from your mom, even under the circumstances of being in a communist country. Wow, that is just absolutely beautiful. And I just want to acknowledge you also for your powerful presence that you provide and bring to Team TUC. You bring so much energy and love and honor. And I thank you for how you show up every single time. Thank you. Miss Andrea. Miss Andrea, would you like to share with us, honey?
Yes, thank you. I do want to share. Thank you. Thank you for the beautiful reading, Farah, and wearing your celebration of voice and sound and light, Diwali. So that was more than symbolic for me today, because this is a rebirth. This is a rebirth for me, and yeah, and it's around voice and light. And my question that I had asked was, who would I need to be to change, alter my relationship with fear? And yesterday, I just synchronistically, it was like 11/11, as everyone knows, it's like a day of alignment. And so I was like super connected and experiencing all these miracles and synchronicities. So I went downstairs, and there's this book, Loving Kindness. And there's a lady who leaves books in the lobby, and I picked it up, and I thought it was for me. I knew it was for me. So I opened it up, and inside it had that Marianne Williamson quote, your greatest fear is not that you're not powerful, that one, and your playing small doesn't serve the world. So that was like, that message was totally for me. You're playing small doesn't serve the world. So I'm in this shopping mall. And I see this sign, 50% off. I was thinking about getting my dad some pajamas as a gift, because I heard him say that he wanted pajamas, and I see the sign, 50% off pajamas. Like in that moment, it was just like boom. And then I went in, and I walked out. Like it was like, no, I'm not going to get my dad 50% off pajamas. And then I walk into this like Porsche, an electric Porsche 2023 electric, beautiful car. And I know that it's kind of apples and oranges, pajamas and Porsches, but it's like a $200,000 Porsche. And it was like, yes, this is this is how I serve the world, from this place of abundance and joy and love and and believing in myself and that I'm valuable and that I've and sharing my voice, sharing my light, and the voice of loving kindness. So yeah, the book is called Loving Kindness, that I found in the lobby that had that quote. And so I just for the fun of it, I replaced it with this book. I gifted that person that loving kindness lady. So I don't know if she took it, but I put it in the lobby, and I wrote her a thank you. So yeah, it's that expansion of our belief in ourself and our loving kindness for ourself, and speaking words of kindness to ourself, and receiving it. So being able to receive it, like give ourselves the acknowledgement and love. So yeah, the restoring like Dave was saying about going from, you know, a nadir to, like, you know, your 2.0 version. Restore, I'm restoring that full version of myself, and embracing who I really am at my core. And I even wore my Diwali earrings that I got in India, Farah. I got it for the celebration of color, Holi. I was there for Holi and for the Ultimate Experience India celebration, which is all about creating. It was all about, for me, it was all about miracles, creating miracles. And now I'm expanding on that, and it involves speaking and being bold and using my gifts and leading with, oh yeah, what the principle that I loved the most was leading with speaking words of kindness and loving kindness. So I am going to serve the one in front of me right now. That's my thing is, and when I was in the mall, there was this ad that said, "No wasted moments." Arcturix, this company has this saying, "No wasted moments." So it's very much serving the one with me powerfully in this now moment with love. So that's, I love this chapter. It's thank you for your sharing your voice, Vanessa. Your voice today, your singing, that moved me, and so did Martha, your song, and so did Dave, your Barry White. You got that all going on. So I'm convinced that our voice is a conduit. We're conduits for love, and so please use it, and love yourself with create with those powerfully. I'm complete.
Thank you, Andrea, for sharing your voice with us so powerfully. You are loving kindness, sweetheart, and something that I heard so powerfully, heard you say so powerfully, was being that to ourselves as well. That although we might serve others with loving kindness, how often are we doing that to ourselves as well? So thank you. Thank you for sharing your voice with us. Before we wrap up the call, and before I pass it over to my beautiful co-host, Martha Jeffers, I would love to come back to Farah one more time to see if there's anything else that's present to her that she would like to share from her beautiful reading today.
Thank you everyone. That was so beautiful. I mean, I'm just feeling like, from Anne-Marie to Andrea to Elizabeth to Dave and Tanya, Dina, Martha, each one of you, whatever you've shared, you've just helped each one of us grow. I haven't heard Renate. I love hearing her, so I hope she's okay. But I just want to say one thing. when we started the chapter, it was written that there are 20,000 or 70,000 coaches, right? I was doing some research because of, can you see that? Let me just change that. Yeah, because the ICF sent us the survey report of 2023, and this was the number of coaches in 2023. Okay, and I was thinking, whatever number they say, I'm like that, in the universe, I'm that little dot, and I make a big difference. And so for me, even if the number becomes millions, it doesn't make a difference because I make that difference, right? So for me, that's how I was looking at this whole thing about how we can choose to be that speck in this universe and still know that we create so many ripples by who we are being. So I really love that. I also want to acknowledge Dave because in Mumbai, I had this moment. It was a fleeting moment. And I think I learned that from my daughter because she's very reflective and she catches something really quickly. And I caught it really quickly. So I'm proud of the moment that Dave gave me this awareness. So I saw him dressed beautifully in his black and white outfit. And it was so amazing. I go and tell him, gosh, um, uh, you're looking awesome. And he turned and he said, yes, I am awesome. And I just, for me, I just paused there because and you would believe at that moment, I've become so aware of that. It's like I choose to actually acknowledge people very differently with that little shift. So you made that awareness come to me really quickly. And then I also want to share, Vanessa, when you were sharing this beautiful stuff about what happens, when the door opens and how do we actually do that? And I was thinking about some of the ways that I realized that has happened for me is, whenever whenever doubt knocks on my door, I let faith open it. And that faith could be anything. It could be your faith in yourself or whatever. So I would say that's what's shifted for me. It's like no matter what noises in my head or noises around me, I choose to actually open the door, and be okay, not knowing, be okay to be a beginner and just playing from that. So I love that. And everybody was talking about playing small and playing thing. And one of the ways in which I'm framing my 2023 and stepping into 2024 is playing big and playing bigger. And for me, that is just being more loyal. For me, playing big is being more loyal to my dreams than to my fears. And that's what I'm doing for myself. Lastly, I want to leave, besides all the crackers that I can hear while I'm talking, I'm keeping my calm. It's loud here. Zoom is kind. I want to leave with this, with this quote. This quote is from Rumi. Run from what's comfortable. Forget safety. Live where you fear to live. Destroy your reputation. Be notorious. I have tried prudent planning long enough. From now on, I'll be mad. And so I want to say that's what I absolutely love, that energy of that quote. And I have it written in front of me. And I think I keep disrupting myself. And I think probably Steve is like that. He's mad. And he runs from everything that's comfortable and he lives in the land of possibilities. So I want to leave us with that thought. And thank you. Thank you for just allowing me to read this chapter. It was very significant for me. Thank you, Tanya and Team Tuck. And everyone who's here.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you for your beautiful sharing and closing. At this time, I'd love to pass it over to Martha. Martha,
Hi.
can you take
Thank
us home, baby
you.
doll? Thank you.
Thank you. Here we are rounding it out. Oh my goodness, that last quote that you gave us, Fari, it just touched me deeply. Powerful, right? Powerful. If not now, when? That's what I keep asking myself, right? When I look at how old I am and how much more time I have in my life, if it's not now, when, baby doll? Because guess what? I don't think I'm going to be 120, so I better get going. So that quote was just really, it really touched me. Thank you today for reading, Farah. Thank you for being part of our team. Thank you for being who you are and showing up today so beautifully in that reading chapter 17. Thank you so much. And also, Elizabeth, so great to see you today. And thank you for saying yes to reading the front or the inside of the book, that part of the book, for sharing. You shine. I love those colors behind you. Thank you so much for shining so brightly for us. And Vanessa, thank you for reading the back of the book. And I so acknowledge you for saying yes to speaking up and using your words in English to express yourself. You don't recognize how beautifully you speak. You really do. And so that resonates for me, because when I speak in Spanish, I kind of hold back a little bit because I always say I don't have enough vocabulary. But the reality is I have a lot of vocabulary, enough for me to communicate. And that's just like you. So thank you for showing up, Vanessa. Te amo. All right. Let's see. And Tanya, as always, thank you for the leadership that you bring to us, to the community, and to Tuck. You are extraordinary. We love you so deeply. You show up so authentically. You are who you are, and I love you deeply. See who else was reading? Oh, God. Wait, who am I missing? Oh, Cassie. Cassie, you started the day, so thank you so much. I just adore listening to your, what do you call it? Let me think. I can't think of the word. But how you express yourself is so beautiful and so clear and so loving. So thank you, Cassie, for reading, for being one of our moderators today. So let's get ready for Sunday, November 15th at 10 p.m. Eastern, or 10 a.m. No, it's Wednesday, right? Next Wednesday. What day is today? Today is Sunday. So next Wednesday, November 15th at 7 p.m. Pacific time or 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And we're going to have the privilege of listening to Karen Davis, who wrote this beautiful book. And she will be reading chapter 18, Steve Chandler. Thank you, Olga. Thank you for putting it up. She'll be reading Steve Chandler. So what a special opportunity to have her here with us, have her share her thoughts, and of course, read chapter 18. So just a reminder, most of you already know, but just to remember, anyone who may be interested in getting more information about the event in Arizona, the anniversary event of the first Tuck gathering back 2 years ago in Phoenix. It'll happen again this year on the 26th and 27th. And then and you can still get your tickets. If anybody is interested in knowing where to get your tickets, just write yes in the chat and we'll be happy to send you the link. And then, of course, the beautiful, amazing, the ultimate Birmingham event that's going to take place in May 25th and 26th, 2024. Incredible. It's around the corner. And all these proceeds are going to a hospital which provides hearing opportunities for children who suffer from hearing loss. So, and then of course, there's all these other beautiful spots in the ultimate Facebook group, the Ultimate Coach YouTube channel, the Coach podcast, Ultimate Coach IG, the Ultimate Coach LinkedIn group. So many avenues for us to LinkedIn and get to know, connect, and be part of this incredible movement of being. So thank you for being with us today, this morning. Good morning, good night, good afternoon. And if you would unmute yourselves, we'd love to just say hello, good night, goodbye, and have a beautiful, wonderful, incredible week of miracles. Yay.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
everyone. Thank you for
Thanks
your
for being
presence.
here.
Thank you, Farah. Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you,
Thank you,
Vanessa, for your
Dave.
wonderful readings. Thank you.
China, Renate.
Yeah. Oh, I can hear myself now.